let's go back to the Olympia. What was that? I mean, obviously you were born into bodybuilding. I mean, your dad was the 3-time runner-up at the Olympia, and it's just what was that like? Was it everything you expected and everything you hoped for?
Yeah, honestly, it was. Like you said, I've grown up in this, so it was one of those things that nothing about it was absolutely new per se, because I had been, backstage at several Olympias. I have had friends that have competed in the Olympias in the past that, I was, in their room for in the days leading up to, and, going to the athletes' meetings with them and stuff. So while it was new for me, I had at least kind of been there and done, most of the weekend. So I kind of had an expectation headed into it at least. So that removed a lot of the stress for me. And honestly, it was one of those just, let's take it in kind of weekends. I showed up and, I feel like I was better at Tampa than I was at the Olympia, but I showed up to the Olympia confident with what I was bringing. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm behind, I'm dreading getting on stage. It was I was excited to show people. And, it was obviously the biggest weekend in our sport, my first time there. So, it didn't let down. The venue they did on such short notice, it was really cool. Like, I'd never seen a stage like that, even for the Olympia and in Vegas. So, they pulled it together in a really grand fashion in a really short time frame for me. And, it'll always be a memorable first one for sure. It was the COVID Olympia where Rami won. So it was definitely interesting.
I mean, top 10. I mean, we'll come off the Olympia in a minute, but I mean, just to go back, because obviously we haven't spoken since. I mean, top 10, your first Olympia, that's a very good starting point. I mean, you beat Dexter Jackson, you beat Justin Rodriguez. I'm a big fan of Justin. You beat some really good bodybuilders there. So it must be a really good springboard for 2021.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously Dex is one of the best to ever do it. And earlier in the year, even he was, top 5 at the Arnold Classic. So
he was second.
Dream come true.
He was second. He beat Rami. He was second. He beat Rami.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. People forget about that. That was last year still.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels years ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it was really cool to get to stand there next to everyone, but the coolest parts for me for the weekend were the parts that happened off stage, stacked up in line, and it's like in front of me there's Phil Heath, and behind me there's Dexter Jackson. The whole weekend when we're sitting there, stacked, not in call outs. I'm sitting there just kind of, chopping it up with Dex on stage. And, like you said, had a chance to stand next to and compete against some really awesome bodybuilders and come out ahead of some of them. So it was really cool.
I think as you've been born into it, I think you must have that, because you're a fan of bodybuilding. Your father was a legendary bodybuilder. And I think you must have a different sort of, say, someone turns pro and they're kind of in their state, and then they end up in the Olympia in a couple of years. I think for you as a fan, you just have a different appreciation for that. Like you said, Phil Heath behind you, and then there's Rami over there, and there's Dexter Jackson. It's because I think you have a true appreciation of what that really means for you.